Hello everyone, enjoy these relaxing moments while watching our video. Music plays softly, and the sky over New York is bathed in the first rays of dawn. This city that never sleeps continues to pulse with energy, but inside a luxurious penthouse in the heart of Manhattan, time seems to have stopped. Sophia Bennett stands by the panoramic window, her gaze distant as she watches the rush of traffic below, as if waiting for something she can't even name. Sophia was once a young woman full of ambition, with dreams of becoming a writer, telling stories that would touch people's hearts. But now she is no longer the master of her own fate. Her family, her parents, who once did everything to protect and care for her, are standing on the brink of ruin. Massive debts, shadowy threats, and the pressure of a world she never wanted to be a part of are now suffocating every hope she once had. Sophia takes a deep breath, trying to summon the last bit of courage left in her heart. A voice inside whispers, "Do this for your family. Sacrifice everything, even if your dreams vanish." But can she give up everything she once loved, just to save those she cannot live without? This is the story of Sophia Bennett, of buried secrets, of the struggle between duty and love, and of a journey to find light amid looming darkness. Can she find a way to save her family and herself? Or will the harsh choices she faces forever change her life? Sophia sits on an antique armchair in the family's living room, the late afternoon sun streaming through the windows, illuminating the corners of a room once filled with laughter. But now the air is heavy, suffocating, as if the house itself bears the weight of the struggles pressing down on her family. Margaret, her mother, sits with her head bowed, her trembling fingers fidgeting with a tear-soaked handkerchief. Her father, Richard, though trying to remain steadfast, wears deep lines on his forehead that betray the worry he cannot hide. "Are you sure you want to do this, Sophia?" Richard asks, his voice hoarse, as if he's holding back a wave of emotion. "If there were any other way, I swear we would never ask you to sacrifice like this." Sophia swallows hard, feeling her heart tighten with pain. She knows her parents have done everything they could to shield her from life's hardships, but now they have no other choice. The mounting debts and the relentless threats from creditors have trapped them. The Bennetts were once a symbol of success and prosperity, but in a short span of time, it has all crumbled like a sandcastle swept away by the tide. "I wish things didn't have to be this way," Margaret choked out, her red-rimmed eyes fixed on her daughter. "You deserve to live a free life, to pursue your dreams of writing, not to be bound to this marriage." Sophia quietly rose from her seat and moved to her mother's side, grasping her trembling hand. "I understand, Mom. My whole life, you and Dad have always protected me, given me the best of everything. Now if there's something I can do to save our family, I will." She gave a gentle smile, but her eyes couldn't hide the sorrow. Sometimes someone has to make a sacrifice. The determination in Sophia's words couldn't erase the fear clenching at her heart. An arranged marriage with Malik Ashar, a man she had never met. His name, associated with the power and prestige of the Ashar oil empire, seemed to come from another world, distant and intimidating. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more captivating stories every day. A knock on the door sounded, and the room seemed to freeze for a moment. David, Sophia's childhood friend and the family's lawyer, stepped in, his face lined with tension. "I've brought the documents," he said, his eyes darting to Sophia with a barely concealed worry. "Sophia, are you sure about this?" She took a deep breath, her hands clenching the fabric of her dress. "I'm sure," she whispered, her voice both steady and trembling. As she signed the papers, Sophia felt as though each signature was a door slamming shut, forever pushing away her unfinished dreams. There was only one path ahead, and Sophia couldn't turn back. Sophia sat alone in her bedroom, a place that had once been a sanctuary of peace, now filled with memories of happiness. Photos of her and her parents from family trips, handwritten letters she had once penned with the hope of turning them into novels one day. All of it now only reminded her of loss. She looked up at a graduation photo where she stood between her parents, her eyes radiant with faith in the future. The dreams of writing, the hopes for a free life, all now seemed dim under the weight of her responsibilities. "Sophia, David appeared in the doorway, his voice gentle but pleading. He stepped into the room, his eyes conflicted and full of concern. They had grown up together, shared secrets, joys, and sorrows. Now he was watching his closest friend make a decision he knew was unbearably painful. "You don't have to do this. Maybe we can find another way." Sophia turned to look at him, her eyes gentle yet resolute. "David, you don't understand," she said, her voice catching. "Sometimes we have to sacrifice for the ones we love. I can't let my family lose everything. I can't let my parents endure anymore." David stepped closer to her, his hands clenched in frustration. "I've tried everything I could. I've reviewed the debts, tried to find legal loopholes, but—" He paused, his voice trembling. "But this isn't fair to you. You deserve a better life, one where you can chase your dreams." Sophia gave a faint smile, though her eyes were filled with pain. "Life isn't always fair, David. I learned that a long time ago." She stood up, walked over to the window, and looked out at the bustling city of New York. The headlights of cars flowed like an endless river, symbolizing the never-ending dreams and aspirations of the people there. "I used to think I could write stories that touch people's hearts," she said softly, as if speaking to herself. "But maybe my story has to be put on hold. My family needs me right now." David looked at Sophia with an understanding that only those who truly know each other can feel. "If this is your decision, then I'll always be here," he said, his voice full of support, yet tinged with deep sadness. "But I won't give up. I'll keep looking, even if I have to turn over every stone." Sophia turned back to him, her gaze gentle. "Thank you, David. I know I can trust you." She stepped forward and hugged him tightly, feeling the warmth and comfort that true friendship brings. But deep inside, Sophia knew that nothing could ease the fear and uncertainty about the future that awaited her. The next day, Sophia stood in front of the mirror, adjusting her dress for the meeting with the Asher family. The elegant dress hugged her figure perfectly, but the heavy feeling inside her remained. Margaret walked in, her eyes red but trying to smile to encourage her daughter. "You look beautiful," she whispered, her voice trembling. Sophia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Mom, I'll be okay," she said, taking her mother's hand. "We'll get through this." The car took them to the Ashar office, a towering skyscraper with majestic architecture, where power and wealth seemed to radiate from every wall. Sophia stepped out of the car, taking a deep breath to steady herself. The grand doors opened, and she walked in, knowing her life would never be the same. Inside, Malik Ashar was waiting for her, the powerful man with piercing eyes, harboring the secrets of a wealthy dynasty, but also the one who held her future and fate in his hands. Sophia felt the turmoil in her heart, but she knew there was no turning back. She had made her choice, and now she had to face the consequences that came with it. Sophia stepped into the vast office, where every detail exuded an air of authority. Priceless paintings adorned the walls, carefully tended potted plants added a touch of nature, and the glittering light from crystal chandeliers cast shadows on the luxurious red carpet. In that moment, she felt like an actor stepping onto the grandest stage of her life, unsure of how the script would unfold. Malik Ashar stood by the window, the early morning light accentuating the stern features of his face. He turned around as she entered, his sharp eyes sweeping over her with a calm yet probing gaze. "Sophia Bennett," he said, his voice deep and steady. "Welcome." Sophia tried to maintain her composure as she walked forward to shake his hand. Her hand trembled slightly, but she reminded herself that she couldn't show any weakness. "Hello, Malik," she replied, her voice soft yet unwavering. In that moment, they both knew they were stepping into a complicated alliance. Malik gestured for her to sit, and Sophia took a seat in the black leather chair across from him. Silence filled the room, broken only by the faint ticking of the wall clock. Margaret and Richard stood behind her, barely daring to breathe. Malik sat down at his desk, his face calm but his eyes betraying a hint of tension. "We're here to discuss the agreement," he said, his voice even but with a touch of coldness. "I know this situation isn't what either of us wanted, but we need to do what's best for our families." Sophia nodded, though turmoil brewed within her. She looked into the eyes of the man before her, wondering if he felt as trapped as she did. "Yes," she replied, striving to keep her voice steady. I'm here for my family, and I believe you are too. Malik was momentarily taken aback by her words, but he didn't let it show. His dark eyes bore into her, as if searching for something. I understand, he said, then turned to a stack of documents on the desk. We'll need time to get used to each other, but I assure you, I'll do everything in my power to make you feel comfortable. Sophia smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Mom, I'll be fine, she said, holding her mother's hand. We'll get through this. The car drove them to the Ashar office, a towering skyscraper with grand architecture, where power and wealth seemed to reign over every wall. Sophia stepped out of the car, took a deep breath, and tried to steady herself. The large doors opened, and she walked inside, knowing her life would never be the same again. Inside, Malik Ashar was waiting for her, the powerful man with piercing eyes carrying the secrets of a wealthy dynasty, but also the one who could hold her future and fate in his hands. Sophia felt the conflict tearing at her heart, but she knew there was no turning back. She had made her choice, and now she had to face the consequences it brought. His words did not completely reassure Sophia, but there was a sincerity in Malik's voice that she couldn't ignore. She wanted to believe that this man, powerful and unfamiliar as he was, might not be as cold as he seemed. Yet Sophia couldn't stop wondering, how many secrets were hidden behind this wealthy family? As the meeting ended, Sophia stepped outside with mixed emotions. She felt as though she had just entered a labyrinth where every turn could lead to another painful truth. Margaret came over and took her hand, her eyes full of concern. You did well, Sophia, she said softly, though her voice caught in her throat. Sophia gave a faint smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. We'll get through this, won't we, Mom? She whispered, as if trying to convince herself. On the way home, Sophia looked out the car window, the scenery of New York City passing by like an endless movie. She couldn't stop thinking about what awaited her. Malik Ashar, the man she was forced to be bound to, was he an enemy or an ally? And the Ashar family, with all their mystery and power, what would they bring into her life? In that fleeting moment, Sophia felt fear creeping in, but she also saw a faint glimmer of hope. No matter what, she knew she had to be strong, for her family and for herself. This journey was just beginning, and she would have to face everything, the pain, the sacrifices, and the secrets waiting for her in the shadows. David sat in the cramped office of the law firm, the glow from the computer screen casting dim shadows across his face. Documents and files were stacked around him, and he had stayed up for countless nights searching for evidence to expose the shady dealings of the Ashar family. Irregular cash flows, contracts concealing identities, and secret investments all pointed to the fact that this powerful oil empire was far from clean. David frowned, his eyes filled with determination. He couldn't sit by and watch Sophia enter this marriage without knowing the full truth. She deserved to know what she was up against. After compiling everything he had found, he decided to call Sophia, but his hand hesitated before pressing the call button. He remembered Sophia's eyes, the determined look when she said she was doing this for her family. Even though his heart wanted to stop her, his mind told him that she wouldn't easily abandon her decision. Still, David knew he couldn't stop searching for a way to protect her. Taking a deep breath, he pressed the call button, but the call went to voicemail. Sophia didn't answer. Sophia and Malik gradually began spending more time together, not just because of meetings related to the marriage contract, but also because they started to grow curious about each other's lives. One afternoon, as they sat in the vast garden of the Asher mansion, an unexpected conversation changed Sophia's perspective on Malik. Literature? Sophia raised an eyebrow, surprised to hear Malik mention a book she had once read. He laughed and shrugged, a rare, relaxed expression appearing on his face, free from the weight of family expectations. Yeah, I'm not just all about financial reports and oil wells. Sometimes a person needs something to escape into. Sophia couldn't stop herself from laughing. I never imagined an oil empire heir would be interested in literature, but do you actually read a lot? Malik smiled, and for the first time Sophia felt he was no longer the cold stranger she had thought him to be. I read when I have time. Good books can take you to places where power and money can't reach. What about you? I heard you once dreamed of becoming a writer? Sophia paused, her eyes momentarily sad. Yes, I did. But those dreams now, they seemed distant. She lowered her head, trying to hide the sense of loss she felt. Malik was silent for a moment, as if considering something. I understand that feeling, he said. Growing up in a family like mine, I didn't have many choices. Everything was planned out. But I have dreams too, Sophia. And sometimes I think about changing everything, not just to uphold the family legacy, but to create something better. Sophia looked up, curious. What's better? Malik took a deep breath, his eyes lighting up with passion. Sustainable energy, he said. I've been researching ways to transition from oil to renewable energy. I want to use my family's wealth and power to invest in something meaningful for the future. Sophia couldn't hide her surprise and admiration. She had never imagined Malik had this side to him, and his vision made her see him in a new light. Then why don't you do it? She asked. You're the heir, right? You can change things. Malik smiled, but it was a sad smile. It's not as easy as you think. My family holds on to old principles. They only care about power, and anything related to change is seen as a threat. But I'm trying. And now, with this marriage, maybe I'll have the chance to put my plans into action. Sophia didn't know how to respond. She felt the conflict between duty and dreams intertwined with what Malik was going through. It was the first time she saw him not just as the man she was forced to marry, but as someone fighting for what he believed in. In the days that followed, Sophia couldn't stop thinking about that conversation. Malik was no longer a frightening stranger, but a man with dreams, someone who longed to change and make the world a better place. She realized she was no longer so sure about the prejudices she had once held. But just as she was feeling this change within herself, David appeared with unpleasant news. He met her at a small cafe in Greenwich Village, a place they used to frequent when they were carefree teenagers. He looked tired, but his eyes were filled with determination. You didn't answer my calls, David said, trying to keep his voice calm. I found more evidence. The Asher family isn't just manipulating finances. They're involved in the illegal dealings. You need to be careful, Sophia. Don't get caught up in this. Sophia bit her lip, feeling his concern. David, I know you're trying to protect me, but it's not that simple. David leaned forward, his expression serious. Sophia, I promise to keep you safe, and I can't let you get involved with a family full of dark secrets. Even if Malik seems kind, he's still part of this empire. Sophia felt the weight in her heart. She had seen a side of Malik she couldn't ignore, but David was right too. She knew she had to be cautious, had to stay alert. Caught between undisclosed secrets and the new feelings stirring in her heart, she found herself standing between two opposing worlds. Before David left, he took her hand. Be careful, Sophia, he said, his voice urgent. I don't want to lose you. Sophia watched his figure disappear into the distance, her heart more conflicted than ever. She knew that the truth was gradually coming to light, but which truth was the one she needed to believe? Malik, with his dream of changing the world, or David, the loyal friend who always protected her from danger? Time was running out, and her decisions would not only affect her own life, but also the fate of those she loved. Sophia sat frozen, her eyes wide as her mother's words sank into her mind like sharp blades. Margaret, her face pale and her hands clasped tightly together as if to hide their trembling, continued telling the story she had buried for years. You don't understand, Sophia, she whispered, her voice choked with pain, as though every word was a torment. I once loved Faisal Ashar. We were young and blind, but our love was never accepted. When he had to return to his homeland, we promised that if possible, our children would unite our families. A promise I thought had been buried forever. Sophia clenched her fists, struggling to hold back her anger and confusion. You knew about all of this, and you never told me? She felt betrayed, not just by fate, but by the people she loved most. Margaret began to cry, tears she had held back for so long. I didn't want to relive that painful past, she sobbed. When our family fell into crisis, I thought the Asher family wanted to help us out of genuine affection from the past. But then I realized the truth. It was all a performance, a reason to bind us for their financial gain. We were just pawns in their game, Sophia. Sophia felt a cold chill wash over her. The struggle between duty and her longing for freedom grew even more intense. The Ashar family was dangerous not only because of their power and wealth, but also because of the way they manipulated everything, calculating every move to achieve their goals. Nothing was left to chance. Everything was meticulously planned. Both she and her mother had been pulled into this complex game long ago without even realizing it. So why did they choose us? Sophia asked, her voice hardening as she tried to control the storm of emotions within her. With all their power and wealth, they could have chosen anyone else to marry, to manipulate. Why us? Margaret shook her head, her eyes filled with regret. Because that past emotional bond is still a useful tool for them, she explained. By helping us, they could create a perfect illusion of compassion and promises between the two families. On the surface, it appears to be an act of kindness, but in reality, it's a financial takeover, a way to expand their power and economic interests. Our family has resources, assets, and a network of partners they are desperate to control. Sophia took a deep breath, feeling as if the air in the room had become stifling. Every word her mother spoke seemed to make the burden on her shoulders heavier. She wasn't just facing this arranged marriage out of responsibility to her family. It was also because of the Ashar family's intricate schemes. She was no longer just a girl sacrificing her dreams for her family. She was a pawn in a game of power she never wanted to play. "Sophia, I'm sorry," Margaret said, her voice breaking into sobs. "I never imagined things would go this far. I only wanted to protect you, but now I realize we're caught in a spiral with no way out." Sophia stepped forward to hug her mother, but her mind kept racing. The image of Malik Asher loomed clearly before her. Did he know about all these schemes, or was he just another pawn in his family's game? Suddenly she found it difficult to distinguish what was real from what was fake. She had seen the sparks of hope and passion in Malik's eyes when he spoke about sustainable energy, about creating something better for the world. But was that just part of a plan she hadn't fully uncovered? Sophia loosened her embrace and stepped back to look at her mother. "Mom, I have to find the truth," she said, her voice more resolute than ever. "I can't let us continue living in the shadow of these secrets." Margaret nodded, her eyes filled with pain, but also a flicker of fragile hope. "Be careful, my love," she said. "The Asher family is not simple. They never show their weaknesses, and they always know how to guard their secrets." Sophia knew that from this moment on, she would have to walk a path full of dangers, a path that was not just a fight for her family, but for the truth and freedom she longed for. But she also understood there was no turning back. No matter the cost, she had to find the truth within this maze of schemes, even if it meant facing the most powerful adversaries. Sophia walked out of the room, the weight of newly revealed secrets still heavy on her shoulders. She was no longer the naive girl swept into an arranged marriage. Now she was someone who knew that everything around her, from the Ashar family to her mother's relationship with Faisal, was woven with plots and hidden agendas. Sophia knew she could no longer stand still and accept a predetermined fate. She had to take control of her own life. David waited for her in the hallway, his face full of worry. "Are you okay?" he asked, his eyes betraying his concern. Sophia paused for a moment, then nodded. But inside, emotions flooded her: anger, fear, and a fierce determination. She knew that only the truth could free her and her family from the Ashar family's grip. "David, I need your help," she said, her voice stronger than ever. "We have to learn everything we can about the Ashar family. I can't step into this marriage without knowing exactly what I'm up against." David nodded, inspired by Sophia's determination. "I found some information, but we'll need to dig deeper," he said. "The Ashar family has an extensive and secure network, but no one is without weaknesses." Sophia clenched her fists, feeling the fire of resolve ignite within her. "We'll find that weakness," she declared, her eyes glinting with defiance. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to like and subscribe to our channel. The small cafe in Greenwich Village buzzed with murmured conversations and the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Sophia sat at a table near the window, soft sunlight casting a glow over her face. But inside she felt no peace. Her wedding day was approaching, and although everything seemed perfectly arranged, anxiety churned within her like an unquenchable storm. Malik sat across from her, his face etched with tension. They had tried to get to know each other, to understand each other through the hardships, but there were things even trust couldn't erase. Suddenly, the cafe door burst open and David walked in, breathing heavily. His eyes burned with intensity as he spotted Sophia and Malik. He didn't care about the curious looks from those around him. He made a beeline straight to their table, clutching a stack of documents tightly. "Sophia," he said, his voice urgent, "I have the evidence. I know what the Ashar family has done." Sophia froze while Malik frowned, his face revealing no clear emotion. "What is going on?" Sophia asked, her chest tight with anxiety. David placed the documents on the table. "I've looked into it thoroughly. The Asher family didn't help your family out of compassion or some old promise. They manipulated your debts. Malik's father used financial and political connections to inflate the debts, making them seem far worse than they actually were, just to force your family into agreeing to this marriage." Malik's eyes widened, clearly in disbelief. "What are you talking about?" he demanded, his voice losing its usual calm. David continued, his voice sharp. "They falsified financial reports, creating fake debts through shell companies and hidden partners. They used their power and influence to distort the truth, ensuring your family had no other choice but to agree to this marriage." Sophia grabbed the stack of documents, her hands trembling as she flipped through the pages. The truth was laid bare before her, clear as day. It felt like everything around her was collapsing. "How long have you known about this?" she asked, her voice breaking. David looked at her, pain evident in his eyes. "I've had my suspicions for a while, but I only just gathered enough proof." He turned to Malik, his gaze unforgiving. "And you? Did you know about this?" Malik shot to his feet, his face pale with shock and anger. "No," he said, his voice cracking. "I had no idea. If what you're saying is true, then I've been deceived too." The atmosphere in the cafe grew suffocating. Every patron began to take notice of the palpable tension between the three of them. Malik took a deep breath, then turned to Sophia, his eyes full of anguish. "Sophia, I didn't know. I had no idea my father did this. I thought I was doing the right thing, for both of our families." Before Sophia could respond, a deep and authoritative voice echoed from the cafe entrance. "That's enough." Faisal Ashar stepped inside, his presence sweeping through the room like a cold wind. He walked forward, his piercing gaze scanning everyone, but it settled on Malik and Sophia. "I did what I thought was necessary to protect our legacy," he said, his voice unwavering. "Sometimes, to maintain power and prosperity, one must make difficult decisions." Sophia stood up, her face hardening. "You destroyed our lives just to protect your power? To seize my family's assets?" She felt a surge of anger rise, erasing any fear she had once felt in the presence of the Ashar family's authority. Faisal merely shrugged, his eyes showing no hint of remorse. "This is how the world works, Miss Bennett. Your family could never stand on its own, and I made the only choice to save them." Malik looked at his father, feeling as if his entire faith was shattering. "You deceived all of us," he said, his voice shaking with anger and pain. "You used everyone, even me." Faisal turned to Malik, his gaze sharp as a blade. "Malik, this is what a leader must do, a protector of his family." But Malik shook his head, the reverence he once held for his father gone from his eyes. "No, father, this isn't how I want to protect my family." He turned to Sophia, and for the first time she saw a fierce determination in his eyes. "Sophia, I've turned a blind eye to too many things, but I can't keep doing that. I will stand against this corruption, even if it means facing my own father." David was stunned, not expecting Malik to be so resolute. Sophia looked at Malik, her heart still conflicted, but a glimmer of hope began to shine. Could there be a chance for justice and truth, even in the darkness of betrayal? Faisal stepped forward, his eyes blazing with fury. "Malik, you don't understand what you're doing." But Malik stood tall, unwavering. "No, father, it's you who doesn't understand," he replied. "I won't let our generation continue living in lies and cruelty. I will fight, not just for Sophia, but for myself and our future." Thank you for following the story. Please comment happy so we know you've read this far. Sophia felt a new sense of hope ignite within her. Perhaps only the struggle for truth and honesty could free them from the Ashar family's web of schemes. Malik and Sophia stood side by side on the rooftop of the Asher building, where the morning sunlight was shining down on New York City, signaling a new beginning. The two of them had endured moments filled with pain, but now they were ready to face the next challenge, restructuring and redefining the Ashar family legacy. "We have to do this with full transparency," Malik said, his voice firm. He turned to Sophia, his eyes no longer clouded with the hesitation of the past. "I'm going to restructure the entire family business, focusing on clean energy and fairness. We need to make amends for the mistakes of the past and build a future we can be proud of." Sophia listened, feeling the powerful determination radiating from Malik. Though she had once been filled with doubt and anger toward him, she now saw the real man standing before her. A man who was not just the heir to a powerful empire, but someone who longed to change and do what was right. "You don't have to do this alone," she said, her voice gentle but steady. "I'll support you, but in my own way." Malik looked at her, his eyes softening. "What do you mean?" Sophia smiled, but it was a smile full of meaning. "I don't want to just be a part of the past or a side character in your story. I want to use my voice to make a difference. I'll write about the truth, about what happened, and about our journey. I'll use my words to raise awareness and call the community to action." Malik felt a deep admiration rise within him. He had always known Sophia was strong, but now he realized she was not only strong, but also had a sharp and meaningful vision. "I can't think of anyone better to tell this story," he said, emotion lighting up his eyes. "We'll do this together, Sophia." David, initially skeptical of Malik's transformation, was gradually won over by his genuine actions. Malik wasn't just talking about change, he was making it happen. Clean energy projects were launched, and compensations for communities affected by the Ashar family's previous business practices were implemented. Malik wasn't just trying to save the family's image. He truly wanted to create a new legacy, one built on transparency and ethics. David sat in his office, his hands gliding over the documents that Malik had made public. He had never believed that Malik could change, but now he had to admit that he was wrong. "Maybe we can do this," David whispered, his eyes stopping on an article Sophia had recently written. The piece exposed the truth, but also called for forgiveness and a chance for change. A few days later, David went to meet Malik and Sophia at the new office of Ashar Enterprises. They were working together, their eyes full of focus and passion. "I'm here to help," David said, breaking the silence. Malik and Sophia looked up, surprised but feeling a glimmer of hope. "Really?" Malik asked, a hint of doubt flashing across his face, but it was quickly replaced by relief. David nodded, his eyes filled with commitment. "I've seen what you've done. I want to believe in this, in the change we can create. If you're truly willing to do the right thing, then I'll be your ally. We'll make sure these changes aren't just empty words." Sophia smiled, feeling a burden lift. "Thank you, David. That means a lot to us." The three of them stood together, an unexpected but solid alliance. They knew the journey would not be easy. There would be enemies wanting to bring them down, old powers unwilling to lose their influence. But for the first time, they felt as though they were standing on solid ground, with truth as their foundation and commitment as their driving force. Malik stepped forward, extending his hand. "Let's do this together," he said, and David did not hesitate to shake his hand. Sophia looked at the two men before her, her heart full of emotion. Love was not an obligation, she realized, but a choice that both were willing to make to protect what mattered most. And with the strength of truth, loyalty, and the determination to make a difference, they braced themselves for a future they hoped would be better. Under the New York sky, a city brimming with opportunities and challenges, they were ready to move forward, no longer victims of conspiracies, but architects of a new chapter for themselves and those they loved. 2 years had passed since that fateful day, and New York was now bathed in radiant sunlight, as if welcoming an entirely new chapter. Sophia stood by the window of her apartment, gazing out at the city that never sleeps. In her hands was her newly released book, its cover glowing with the title, Secrets Unveiled, a story of love, lies, and the journey to uncover the truth. The book, inspired by her own life, had touched the hearts of millions and become a bestseller. Sophia couldn't believe how far she had come. The book was not only her liberation, but also a testament to the fact that truth and real change can create miracles. Standing beside her, Malik, now the leader of Asher Enterprises, couldn't hide his pride and emotion as he witnessed the incredible success of the woman he loved. "I don't think I'll ever get tired of seeing you this happy," Malik said, a warm smile spreading across his face. They had come through a tumultuous journey, and now he was no longer the heir chained to his family's old legacy. Under his leadership, the Ashar Empire had transformed into a model of ethical business. The company now led the way in renewable energy, and numerous compensation programs for previously affected communities had been successfully implemented. Sophia turned to look at Malik, her eyes glowing with love and gratitude. "You know," she said softly, "if someone had told me 2 years ago that we'd be standing here, strong and happy like this, I would never have believed them." Malik chuckled, gently wrapping his arms around her. "Well, that's good," he teased, "because this journey was worth more than anything we could have imagined. And the best part is that we faced it all together." Their wedding took place on a warm autumn day, in a garden filled with shimmering light on a sprawling estate outside New York. It was no longer a wedding marked by sacrifice or duty, but a celebration of love and faith in the future. White petals were scattered along the aisle, mingling with the laughter and heartfelt emotions of the guests. David stood among the attendees, a bright smile on his face as he watched his two friends prepare to enter a new chapter of their lives. He was no longer a skeptic. He had witnessed Malik's genuine transformation and the unshakable strength of Sophia. He felt proud to have stood by them in their fight for justice and transparency. Sophia walked down the flower-strewn aisle, clutching a bouquet of pure white hydrangeas. Her gaze rested on Malik, who stood waiting for her under the floral arch, his eyes shining with an uncontainable happiness. In that moment, all the hurt, all the pain of the past melted away. Only love and a new beginning remained. When Sophia reached Malik, the officiant began with moving words. "Today we are not only celebrating the union of two people, but also the rebirth of dreams and the beginning of a journey full of hope." Malik took Sophia's hand, his voice choked with emotion but full of sincerity. "Sophia, you have taught me the power of truth and compassion. I promise to always choose honesty and love, not out of duty or pressure, but because I want to spend my life protecting and cherishing you." Tears shimmered in Sophia's eyes as she responded. "Malik, you have shown me that change is possible, that we can build a better future. I choose you, not for any reason other than the love we have discovered and protected together." As they exchanged rings and vows, everyone stood and applauded, offering their blessings. It was a moment no one would forget, a reminder that from pain and hardship, the most beautiful things can still emerge. David, standing next to Margaret and Richard, felt his heart lighten and fill with hope. He knew that, despite the dark moments, life could still bring light as long as people fought for what was right and chose love over fear. As the ceremony transitioned into the celebration, Sophia and Malik danced under the starry sky. Their laughter echoed through the warm night air, blending with the gentle music. They had found happiness not by running from the past, but by facing it, learning from it, and building a future they could be proud of. "This is only the beginning," Malik whispered into Sophia's ear as she leaned into his shoulder, feeling his heartbeat match the rhythm of the song. Sophia smiled, her eyes shining. "And we will write our story, page by page, with love and honesty." And so, under the gentle glow of hanging lanterns, they began a new chapter together, with the belief that no challenge was insurmountable. Thank you for watching the entire video all the way through. You are our biggest motivation to keep creating. How did you like the story? Let us know by commenting your rating of the story from 1 to 10. Thank you. Ella Carter is a passionate and driven marketing analyst. After a long and exhausting day at work, she hurriedly made her way to her car, eager to get home and unwind. But in her fatigue and distraction, she accidentally got into the wrong car, a mistake that would change her life forever. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories like this one. Let's go. Ella Carter is a beautiful and intelligent young woman, a passionate and driven marketing analyst. She constantly strives to excel in her work, even if it means sacrificing sleepless nights and hastily eaten meals at her desk. At 28, Ella has established a solid position at the prestigious tech company she works for. Her colleagues admire her dedication, but no one knows that the pressures of work are gradually wearing away at the energy and optimism she once had. Today was particularly stressful. The day had been filled with back-to-back meetings from morning until evening, with deadlines and demands piling up relentlessly, leaving her barely able to catch her breath. Ella felt like she was battling a fierce wave, constantly struggling to keep her head above water. She hurried out of the building where she worked as the sunset painted the sky a deep red, leaving behind the noise of traffic and bustling crowds, though the exhaustion still clung to her. Her mind was a jumbled mess, preoccupied with unfinished reports and incomplete tasks. Feeling the weight of fatigue, Ella walked briskly through the nearly empty parking lot. She paid no attention to her surroundings, just hoping to sit in her car and rest for a moment, longing to escape the suffocating pressure of work. Her tired eyes scanned the rows of cars until they landed on a sleek black sedan that looked remarkably like hers. Without thinking, she opened the door and slid into the passenger seat, exhaling a sigh of relief. "Oh God, what a long day," Ella muttered, leaning her head back and closing her eyes. She didn't realize that the man in the driver's seat was looking at her with a mixture of surprise and amusement. "Tough day, huh?" A warm, deep voice broke the silence, and Ella's eyes flew open. She turned to see a stranger sitting next to her. His sharp, mysterious gaze, neatly styled hair, and impeccably tailored suit exuded a level of sophistication and authority. For a moment, it felt like the blood in her veins had frozen. Her heart pounded wildly as she realized her huge mistake. I'm so sorry," she stammered, her face flushing with embarrassment. "I thought this was my car." The stranger smiled, a hint of amusement playing at his lips, but his eyes held a depth Ella couldn't quite decipher. "It's okay," he replied calmly. "It happens to the best of us, especially after a long day." Ella had no idea that the charming and composed man in front of her was none other than James, the CEO of her company. James continued to smile, and something in his eyes made Ella feel even more disoriented. The fading sunset behind him cast golden light through the car window, highlighting the strong features of his handsome face and the composed demeanor of someone who wielded great power. Yet instead of reprimanding her or showing annoyance, James seemed genuinely amused by Ella's unexpected intrusion. James spoke again. "I've had days so exhausting that I couldn't tell up from down, either." Ella sat frozen, her heart still pounding and her face burning with embarrassment. She quickly grabbed the door handle, ready to flee the scene to escape the mortifying situation. "I'm really sorry, I should leave," she blurted, her voice trembling. But before she could open the door, James raised his hand, not to stop her, but to reassure her. "Wait, no need to rush off," he said, his voice gentle and inviting. "Maybe we can take a moment to relax. You look like you're about to explode from the stress." Ella looked at him, surprised and more confused than ever. No one at work, especially a superior, had ever spoken to her so casually. Strangely enough, his presence didn't feel intimidating. Instead, it brought a sense of calm. Ella took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. She sat up straight, her eyes flickering briefly to the man in the driver's seat. He had an air of natural confidence, his expression both composed and slightly amused. It baffled her how someone like him could make her feel oddly safe. "Honestly," Ella began, her voice low and tired, "work has been draining lately. Endless meetings, back-to-back projects. I feel like I'm never good enough, no matter how hard I try." She turned her gaze out the window, eyes lost in the cityscape. "Some days I just want to run away from it all, but then I think about how many people at the company rely on me." James tilted his head, his expression softening as he listened. There was no judgment in his eyes, only a profound understanding. "I know that feeling," he said, his voice warm. "A big company can be like a giant machine, and sometimes we all feel like tiny cogs in the system." He let out a gentle sigh, his eyes reflecting genuine empathy. "But even those at the top aren't immune to that kind of pressure. Stress doesn't discriminate. Ella was taken aback. She hadn't expected this man, who looked like he belonged in a world of luxury and power, to understand what she was going through. Her gaze softened, and she managed a weary smile. "That's strange," she admitted. "Hearing you say that makes me feel better. Like someone actually gets it." James smiled gently, a warmth in his eyes. "That's something people often overlook. Everyone deals with pressure, no matter their position. But it's important to remember that we're never truly alone. Sharing that burden can make it feel a little lighter." A comforting warmth spread through Ella's chest. His words weren't just empty platitudes. They felt sincere and heartfelt. She looked at him, surprised by the sense of trust she found herself feeling toward a stranger. "Thank you," she murmured. "Not everyone takes the time to listen, especially when they don't know who I am." James regarded her, his smile still soft. "Everyone deserves to be heard, and sometimes talking to a stranger helps us see things more clearly." He paused as if he wanted to say something more, but chose to remain silent, his gaze full of genuine care and understanding. Ella bit her lip gently, feeling the air in the car lighten slightly after she had shared her work pressures. She turned to look at the man listening to her, his face showing a rare kind of understanding. "I don't know why I'm telling you so much," she said, blushing slightly. "Actually, we don't even know each other, do we? I'm Ella Carter, from the marketing department at Novatech Solutions." James tilted his head, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "Nice to meet you, Ella," he replied. "I'm James." He paused for a moment, as if considering something. "Just James," he added, maintaining an air of mystery and gentleness. Ella raised an eyebrow, tilting her head slightly at the way he introduced himself. "James," she repeated, curiosity sparkling in her eyes. "How strange. The way you say that makes me think you're hiding something." She let out a small laugh, trying to ease her own curiosity. James smiled, a smile that hinted at something deeper. "Maybe I'm more mysterious than I think," he said half-jokingly. "But I promise, there's nothing dangerous about it." Ella burst out laughing, and the tension she had felt earlier gradually dissipated. "All right then, mysterious James. Thank you for being the most pleasant stranger I've ever met on a stressful day like this." James kept his smile, but his eyes held a different emotion, something tender and slightly conflicted. "My pleasure," he replied. "And who knows, maybe I'll get the chance to hear more about your stressful days." They both laughed, and the atmosphere in the car grew lighter, as if the world full of pressure and expectations no longer weighed so heavily on their shoulders. Ella stepped out of the car feeling a sense of relief and comfort. She had no idea that the man who had just listened to her was the CEO of the company she worked for. Hit the subscribe button to join us on journeys full of emotions and surprises. One late afternoon, Ella walked into her favorite cafe after work, craving a bit of peace after a long, exhausting day. The warm aroma of freshly roasted coffee filled the cozy space, gently soothing the stress in her heart. Ella chose her usual table by the window, where she could sip her coffee while watching the hurried crowd outside. Her mind wandered back to the strange but memorable conversation she'd had a few days ago with the mysterious driver. She let out a quiet sigh, wondering why that man had left such a deep impression on her. His words of encouragement and genuine concern still echoed in her mind, like a gentle breeze lifting away her weariness. The cafe door swung open, and a familiar figure stepped inside. James. He wore a simple but elegant suit, exuding an undeniable charm. Their eyes met unexpectedly, and both of them froze for a moment. Ella couldn't hide her shy smile, while James approached with a look of surprise and joy. "Hello, Ella," James greeted, his deep voice sending a small shiver through her. "Didn't expect to see you here." Ella set down her coffee, her cheeks flushing slightly. "What a coincidence," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "This is where I usually come to unwind after a long day." "You too?" James nodded, his smile gentle. "Yes, there's nothing quite like a good cup of coffee to calm the mind." He gestured to the chair opposite her. "Mind if I join you?" Ella nodded, and James took a seat. They began to talk naturally, like old friends who had bumped into each other by chance. They discussed work, dreams, and the little things in life. Ella told James about her passions, books, music, and her dream of traveling the world. James listened attentively, his eyes lighting up whenever she laughed or spoke with excitement. James couldn't hide his admiration for Ella. She was intelligent, thoughtful, and had a unique brightness about her that he couldn't look away from. Yet deep inside, he kept the secret of his true identity. He cherished the simplicity and sincerity of these moments, afraid that if Ella knew he was the CEO of her company, everything would become complicated and might push them apart. As time went on, their meetings became more frequent. James and Ella often sat together after work, sometimes at the cafe, other times taking leisurely walks in the nearby park. They laughed, shared heartfelt conversations, and discovered the little joys in life together. Whenever he was with Ella, James felt like he was no longer the powerful, pressured businessman, but just a simple man searching for happiness in the ordinary moments. Ella gradualmente sintió la irresistible atracción que James tenía sobre ella. He was different from anyone she had ever known, genuine, warm, and somehow always able to understand her in a way that felt almost magical. Despite feeling the special connection between them, she never once considered that he might be anything other than an interesting man whom fate had somehow arranged for her to meet. Their relationship grew deeper, but it also carried truths that James could not avoid forever. With every beautiful moment shared with Ella, he wrestled with the question, could she forgive and accept the real him once the truth was revealed? The important day that Ella had been preparing for finally arrived. She adjusted her professional suit, carrying the well-thought-out presentation for the project that she and her team had poured their energy into over the past weeks. This was her chance to prove her capabilities to the company's senior board. Taking steady steps into the meeting room, Ella tried to calm her nerves, taking a deep breath to dispel the anxiety tightening in her chest. Ella walked into the conference room with confidence, her hands gripping the folder of materials tightly. This was a major opportunity, and she had meticulously prepared to present her ideas for a key project. Her eyes swept over the spacious room bathed in bright white light, where the company's top executives were already seated, waiting for her presentation. She drew a deep breath to steady herself, focusing on what she had to say. Subscribe to the channel now to discover more interesting and meaningful stories every day. But then, the door to the meeting room opened and every thought in Ella's mind froze. James walked in, not with his relaxed demeanor and warm smile she had come to know, but wearing the crisp suit of a powerful CEO. He took his place at the head of the table, his expression stern and distant. Ella stood motionless, feeling her heart stop. The truth crashed down on her, sudden and brutal, paralyzing her emotions. James, the man she had slowly opened her heart to, who had listened to her small stories and understood her quiet worries, was the CEO of her company, the person she had never imagined to be in the highest, most authoritative position. Shock coursed through every fiber of her being, and a wave of hurt tore through her chest. She stood there, desperately trying to keep her face composed, even as emotions twisted fiercely inside her. But deep down, she felt as though she were being torn apart by betrayal. The moments they had laughed together, the genuine conversations they had shared, all of it now seemed cloaked in a shadow of deceit. Everything blurred as Ella struggled to understand why he had kept this from her. James took his seat, and his eyes briefly flickered toward Ella. He saw the confusion in her gaze, the eyes that had once shone with joy when they laughed together, now clouded with disbelief and pain. A pang of regret washed over him, but he could only maintain a composed exterior. Anger surged through Ella. She felt betrayed, not just by the revelation of his true identity, but because he had made her feel a real, authentic connection, only for it to be founded on a massive lie. Each second that passed in the meeting room felt suffocating, as if all the air had been sucked out. She wondered if his words, his smiles, had ever truly been sincere, or if they were just part of a charade to hide the truth about who he was. The meeting began, but Ella could barely hear anything. Her mind replayed the same thoughts over and over. Yet she had no time to fall apart. The eyes of the executives were on her, waiting for her to proceed. Summoning every ounce of strength she had left, Ella pushed through the presentation, but inside her, A storm of emotions was raging. James sat at the head of the table, quietly listening, and though his expression showed a hint of remorse, it did nothing to lessen the ache in her heart. At the end of the meeting, Ella walked out with a stiff expression, her eyes avoiding everyone around her. Her heart was pounding, not with the thrill of a successful presentation, but with the overwhelming feelings of betrayal, pain, and anger swirling inside her like a storm. James didn't linger in the room either. He knew that an inevitable confrontation was looming. The meeting concluded with a heavy silence hanging in the air. Ella se apresuró a salir, incapaz de soportar la tensión un momento más. It felt as though everyone could see right through her to the anguish burning inside. Her steps were unsteady, but she forced herself to maintain her composure as she made her way down the empty hallway. James knew he couldn't let things continue like this. He quickly followed her, his heart pounding not only with the fear of losing the woman he loved, but also with the guilt that had weighed on him since they first met. "Ella, wait!" he called out, his voice no longer carrying the authority of a CEO but filled with worry and a desperate plea. Ella stopped. She turned around, and the hurt in her eyes pierced straight into his heart. "What do you want?" she said, her voice trembling. "You lied to me, James. You made me believe in moments that now feel like nothing but deception." James stood still, trying to maintain his composure. "Ella, I know you feel betrayed, and I'm so sorry, but what we had was real. Every word I spoke to you, every moment we shared, came from my heart." Ella let out a bitter laugh, her voice tinged with pain. "You say you love me, but you hid the most important truth about yourself. Do you have any idea how much that hurts?" She looked at him, her eyes welling up with tears. "I thought you were just a regular person, someone I could trust, but instead, you're the CEO of my company, someone powerful, and I'm just a lowly employee." James stepped closer, his gaze filled with regret. "I didn't hide my identity to deceive you," he said, his voice deep and sincere. "I was afraid that if you knew who I really was, everything between us would change. I wanted to be myself around you, not the CEO, just James, a man who fell in love with you." Ella felt her heart tearing in two. The truth was, she did love him, the man who shared gentle moments, laughter, and endless conversations about the little things in life. But the disappointment and sense of betrayal were still raw and undeniable. She shook her head, her voice cracking. "I don't know if I can trust you again." The emotional turmoil made her feel lost within her own heart. She loved him, but how could she be certain their connection was genuine when such a monumental secret had clouded everything? "I need time," Ella whispered, avoiding his gaze. "Time to think, to find myself again." James swallowed hard, his throat tight with emotion. He knew he had to let her go, even if it shattered his heart. "I'll wait," he said, his voice trembling with pain. "I won't pressure you, but I hope you'll realize that my love for you is real." Time passed and Ella tried to focus on work, hoping to regain her balance. She threw herself into her projects, dedicating all her energy to the demanding deadlines and intense meetings. Yet every time she was reminded of her memories with James, her heart wavered. Each smile, each look he had given her, made her long for the warmth and safety she once felt. During their time apart, James endured the emptiness and agony of missing her. He knew there was nothing he could do but wait and hope. He kept his promise, giving her the space she needed, even though every day without her felt like a dagger to his heart. Each day he went to the office and saw Ella working without interacting with him. His heart ached. He knew he had to give her the space she deserved, but the inability to comfort or be near her tore him apart. Still, he remained resolute, determined to prove his sincerity and redeem himself. As time went on, James never stopped trying to show that his love and sincerity for Ella were genuine. He knew that only actions and patience could win back her trust. He started with small gestures, offering quiet and thoughtful support. He attended board meetings but refrained from interfering in her work, always keeping his distance while subtly showing his unwavering support. Ella noticed the change in James. He no longer seemed like the controlling, powerful man she once imagined him to be. Instead, he became humble and patient, respecting her space and never demanding or pressuring her. Even so, the wounds were still fresh, and she knew it would take time for them to fully heal. In the meantime, Ella poured her energy into her work and achieved remarkable success. She led a crucial project, a groundbreaking marketing campaign that she had tirelessly worked on. Under her confident leadership, her team performed with exceptional efficiency, and the campaign quickly made a significant impact. Her achievements drew the attention of the board, who came to admire and respect her resilience and talent. Yet even with all her accomplishments, Ella still felt an emptiness inside. She missed the genuine moments she had shared with James, but the pain of his deception lingered. One evening, while working late at the office, she found a handwritten letter left on her desk. The familiar handwriting of James made her pause, her heart pounding. Ella, the letter began, I know that nothing I do can erase the pain I caused, but I want you to know that every day I carry the weight of my regret. I don't expect you to forgive me instantly, but I hope you see that my love is real, and I will always be here, supporting you from afar. I'm proud of you and everything you've accomplished. You are stronger than anyone I've ever known. James. Ella held the letter, her eyes brimming with tears. Each word radiated a sincerity she had never felt so clearly. A part of her recognized the genuine change in James. He had learned how to love without control, to support without imposing. As more time passed, Ella realized that James had truly transformed. He was no longer just a powerful man in a suit, but someone who had learned from his mistakes and grown because of them. His actions were no longer attempts to cover up his missteps, but signs of his unwavering love and commitment. She decided to give him another chance, but this time with clear boundaries and principles. They took the time to talk about what had happened, addressing the pain and disappointment, but also dreaming of new hopes and possibilities. Both of them committed to building a relationship rooted in honesty, unafraid to confront their past wounds and work to heal together. They moved forward slowly, without rushing or making unrealistic demands. James remained patient and respected Ella's limits, while she gradually opened her heart and allowed him back into her life. They both knew the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but they were ready to walk it together, prepared to embrace a new chapter where love was not just an emotion, but a commitment built on trust and maturity. Ella's hard work and dedication were finally rewarded. After successfully completing the major project, the board decided to promote her to head of marketing. The news was announced one morning in the conference room, where Ella stood surrounded by her colleagues, her eyes shining with pride and joy. She couldn't believe that her journey from a passionate young marketing analyst to a top leadership position in the company had become a reality. James stood nearby, a gentle and proud smile lighting up his face. He couldn't express how happy he was to see the woman he loved conquer every challenge and reach the pinnacle of her career. He clapped the loudest, his gaze full of love and admiration for Ella. At that moment, he knew that all the trials and hardships they had faced only made their bond stronger. The love between Ella and James was now built on a stronger foundation than ever before. They had learned to love without hiding or lying, and each day they felt more connected, not just through admiration, but through the respect and trust they had worked so hard to rebuild. They cherished every moment together, from simple dinners to walks by the Hudson River at sunset. Their love had overcome the barriers of status and identity, leaving only sincerity and a deep, unbreakable bond. A few months later, Ella and James received the happiest news of their lives. They were expecting their first child. They couldn't contain their emotions and happiness at the thought of a tiny new life joining their world. They began making plans for the future, preparing everything so that their child would grow up in a loving and supportive family. One beautiful evening, Ella and James stood on the balcony of their apartment, gazing at the sky illuminated by the twinkling city lights. A gentle breeze swept through Ella's hair, and James wrapped his arms around her from behind, softly placing his hands on her belly, where new life was growing. They smiled, knowing that the road ahead would be full of challenges, but they were ready to face it all together. We've come such a long way, haven't we? Ella susurró, sus ojos siguiendo las reflexiones de la luz en los rascacielos. Yes, James replied, his voice tender but resolute. And I can't imagine this journey without you. You and our baby are the most precious things in my life. Ella sonrió, su corazón rebosando de amor y felicidad. We'll be great, won't we? I believe that as long as we have love and sincerity, we can overcome anything. James nodded, his eyes never leaving hers. Yes, we'll be great. And I know our future will be filled with incredible wonders. The story ends with Ella and James standing together, hand in hand, looking up at the star-filled sky. They knew that love wasn't just a feeling, but a continuous effort, perseverance, and unwavering trust. They had overcome the greatest challenges together and were ready to step into a new chapter of their lives with hope and a strong, unbreakable bond. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and give us a like and share to spread these inspiring stories with more people. Thank you.